The mishandling of the Tom Clancy name has just been tragic as of late, with Ubisoft not really understanding what Tom Clancy video game fans love about that series of games. It's more grounded in tactical nature. Instead, now they're using the Tom Clancy name to chase trends. Be the next Call of Duty Warzone, the next Apex Legends, the next Rainbow Six Siege or Overwatch or whatever. Chief among the franchises that have been mistreated, I think, is Ghost Recon. Looking at Metacritic, I don't have to tell you how poorly this game did. Critically and commercially, it also disappointed. Metascore is incredibly low. User score is even lower. Same for the PC version. Aside from your typical broken and unfinished release, the game also went out of its way to shoehorn in looter-shooter elements to make it more like one of those live service games instead of a proper Ghost Recon title. Fans were none too pleased about that. And then adding insult to injury was the introduction of Ubisoft Quartz, their NFTs, which they use Ghost Recon Breakpoint as the guinea pig to test this feature out, this beta feature. And looking at the likes to dislikes ratio, you can see just 1.7 thousand likes versus a whopping 45,000 dislikes. Aside from the fact that NFTs accomplish nothing new, all of the features that companies keep advertising NFTs will pave the road for, you can already do without NFTs. The actual in-game items were not enticing, which is basically weapon skins or helmets and armor pieces with like a unique number on them. Apparently that was supposed to offer value and ownership and all this other BS. But NFT sales surrounding this game haven't been explosive. They haven't really taken off. There's just not a whole lot of interest surrounding them. Even the company's own developers are like, what the hell are we doing here? Ubisoft devs don't understand companies' NFT push either. Reading through this December 2021 Kotaku article, scrolling down, you'll find a number of quotes like, I still don't really understand the problem being solved here. Is it really worth the extremely negative publicity this will cause? Spoilers, no it isn't. How can you look at private property, speculation, artificial scarcity, and egoism and then say, yes, this is good, I want that, let's put that in? These are executives who are talking about, they don't see it as, let's put it in art. They see it as, let's fuel the monetization machine further. And even with the internal negative sentiments, Ubisoft at one point tried to gift NFTs to employees. This was all part of the 20th anniversary celebration of Ghost Recon. This was Ubisoft's way to show their appreciation to employees, and anniversaries have become very popular events for companies to shove their NFT scams. Konami, 35th anniversary of Castlevania, NFT auction. Atari, they had an anniversary recently where they put out loot box NFTs. And then the cherry on top to all of this is when Ubisoft went out there and said, gamers just don't get it. They don't understand what we're offering. They don't get the value that NFTs can pose for gaming as a whole. Here's what VP Nicolas Poard said. I think gamers don't get what a digital secondary market can bring to them. Gamers really believe it's first destroying the planet and second just a tool for speculation. But what we at Ubisoft are seeing first is the end game. The end game is about giving players the opportunity to resell their items once they're finished with them or they're finished playing the game itself. You do realize that feature is already possible and has been possible for decades, right? Diablo 3, Auction House, remember that? And there are similar kinds of shops in games, modern games, and you don't need NFTs for them. He proceeds to talk down to people further. We know it's not an easy concept to grasp. We know we need to explain this to you because you're so stupid. But Quartz is really just the first step that should lead to something bigger, something that will be more easily understood by our players, says man who can't explain exactly how when prompted for exact details as to how NFTs will actually forward the landscape of gaming. Which finally brings us to the piece de la résistance. Ghost Recon Breakpoint is ending development. It is ending updates. As announced here by the official Ghost Recon Twitter page, hey Ghost, we have an important message we would like to share with you all. One of the images has the statement from the team, which reads as follows. Hey Ghost, first we want to say thank you for all the love and support you have brought to the game. During the past 2 years, we released more than 11 updates and supported several unique initiatives, such as these. The last 4 months marked the release of our final piece of content, the brand new Operation Motherland mode. Tons of new items, including 20th anniversary iconic outfits and quartz items for Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Even in death, this game continues to advertise its NFTs. We'll continue to maintain our servers for both Ghost Recon Wildlands and Ghost Recon Breakpoint, and we truly hope you'll continue to enjoy the game and have fun playing in solo or co-op with your friends. From the entire Ghost Recon team, we want to thank you again for your continued support. And then they conclude by saying thanks to the fans, but essentially there are no more updates coming to the game. The live service aspect of the game is dead. They are going to keep the servers up so players can still, engage with the game and play it as it is now, but its journey has come to an end. And what that means is that eventually players will move on from this game, and the NFTs that were supposed to increase in value over time as more players become invested in the game and its cosmetic items and its in-game assets, well, guess what? None of that's going to end up panning out. These NFTs will be worth even less now. I mean, they're worthless in the literal sense, but in the speculative market, the speculation will be that they'll depreciate in value because the game as a live service is no longer really alive. And on top of that, keep in mind that this game is bound to shut down at some point, and the fact that they're ending support for Breakpoint means that they're getting ready to move on and leave this thing behind. And once it's left behind, those NFTs, those receipts to the in-game assets, once the in-game assets are gone because eventually servers may shut down for the game, honestly, it seems like an inevitability. It may take like a decade or whatever, but one day they'll shut down. Guess what? When that happens, all you're left with is a receipt to nothing, a receipt to zeros and ones that are already representative of items that don't actually exist in real life. They're just zeros and ones. And eventually even the digital data will be gone, and the receipt you're left with will be even more worthless. A receipt that points towards that digital asset, and some crowds collectively have agreed upon this idea of ownership of something if you have the NFT for it, but you don't actually get to hold it. You don't actually get to really do much with it. The whole idea of like, oh, well, you can take NFTs and transfer them between games, it just doesn't work that way. Every game has a different code at its foundation, uses different engines and tools, and even if they use the same engine, you still have to like make the assets that will take those NFTs and read them and then like represent that as an in-game asset to transfer between games. It's just not tenable unless a lot of work goes into it, and unless companies decide to break down barriers and collectively work to make every game compatible with every game, which is just something I don't see ever happening, and it's just not even really tenable. Now, if you think that they've given up on NFTs as a whole, you'd be wrong because, well, it's Ubisoft executives we're talking about. Sure, Ghost Recon Breakpoint has ended its updates, but Ubisoft has expressed that they're working on NFTs for other titles. And on top of all that, Ubisoft put out a statement to NFT owners that is probably the most condescending statement they could give. So here's how games industry details this information. March saw the final update for the game. Servers for both Breakpoint and its predecessor Wildlands will continue to be maintained. GamesIndustry.biz asked Ubisoft whether this includes the game's NFTs and received a screenshot from the Ubisoft Court's website, which is not available in all regions, confirming this to be the case. The screenshot contained a message that thanks all Ghost Recon Breakpoint players who claimed their first digits, Ubisoft's term for its NFTs, adding, "You own a piece of the game and have left your mark in its history." Yeah, you made history for being suckers. They were certainly suckered out of the promise that these NFTs will bring riches and ownership of in-game items that are now going to depreciate in value in a game that has essentially died as a live service, and all these things that make these NFTs even less functional, serving even less of a purpose, as if it wasn't worthless enough. So for them to come out and say, well, at least you made history, this is about as good as a participation award. This is them saying, well, so long, suckers, but here's your, here's your certificate of good job, and congrats. You made history, buddy. All right, we'll go now. And this whole notion of you own a piece of the game, how laughable, as if the players who own those NFTs can do anything that isn't within Ubisoft's purview of what you can do with this thing you allegedly own. Ubisoft is the one who can decide the fate of those NFTs. If they decide to shut the game down and basically end your access to the content that the NFTs point to, guess what? You can do nothing about it because you don't actually own anything surrounding that game. Ubisoft owns the IP, and they can do whatever the hell they want with the game. At any point, Ubisoft can decide to leave you hanging and you can do nothing about it. You bought a spot on a digital ledger. That's all NFTs are. It's like buying a piece of the moon, basically. It means absolutely nothing. The message concludes with, stay tuned for more updates with features to the platform and future drops coming with other games. So, yeah, Ubisoft is insistent on continuing the NFT endeavors. I mean, if you think game design isn't going to be affected by that in any way, shape, or form, then you have not been paying attention to these companies' habits the past few years. News outlet Kotaku has also reported, based on their own sources, that there is a new Ghost Recon in development as Ubisoft moves on from Breakpoint NFT controversy. I don't have much faith that Ubisoft can do right by this franchise anymore. Obviously, I hope I'm wrong, but when 2 releases in a row launch in such a rough state and you keep going in the wrong direction with each new entry, and when Ubisoft has continued to release so many uninspired titles in the last few years, it's hard to be confident, especially given this is a Tom Clancy series game and given how bad their track record has been lately when it comes to Tom Clancy games. It's hard for me to keep the faith that things will be different with the new Ghost Recon game, which is codenamed Over, by the way, which coincides with information that leaked via someone who data mined NVIDIA's GeForce Now, which led to a list of games coming out that confirmed God of War 2018 coming to PC and Final Fantasy VII Remake coming to PC before that was announced. And among the titles in that list were a number of Ubisoft projects titled Project Meteor, Project Q, Project Over, and Project Orlando. We now know for sure that Project Over, or at least based on Kotaku sources and report, Project Over is the new Ghost Recon game. Now, this is separate from this other Ghost Recon game called Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Frontline, which indeed involves 100 players facing off against each other. Basically, Ubisoft trying to do their own version of Call of Duty Warzone and trying to break into that market and chasing trends instead of being the ones whose trends are being chased after. You can see how negatively this title's announcement was received, with a whopping 22,000 dislikes versus only 5.8 thousand likes. And the reception surrounding it was so negative that Ubisoft decided to postpone the closed beta for Ghost Recon Frontline, the game nobody asked for, says Kotaku. And yeah, this headline is not incorrect. Now, there may be some hope that interest surrounding NFTs is decreasing within Ubisoft based on what Kotaku is reporting here. With the end of Breakpoint updates comes new radio silence for the NFT push. According to 2 sources familiar with Ubisoft's Strategic Innovations Lab, the team behind Quartz has gone mostly quiet internally following the initial backlash to its controversial experiment. But when Kotaku reached out to Ubisoft about this and whether this is indicative of NFT operations kind of simmering down, the response a spokesperson provided was, we'll have more to share regarding Ubisoft Quartz at a later date. So it doesn't seem like they're ready to throw in the towel quite yet, but the general trend of these kinds of announcements garnering so much backlash and Ubisoft's NFT endeavors not really taking off and not doing all that well could potentially be hopeful signs that maybe one day Ubisoft will give up on this nonsense. Though maybe this is just the calm before the storm, given that the publisher is currently hiring for a number of new blockchain-related roles, including economists, content managers, and a producer to coordinate with game teams and help them integrating Quartz. Now, it's not just players who are unhappy with the direction that Ubisoft has been going in as of late. Internally, some Ubisoft developers remain frustrated and confused by the company's NFT push. They're also not all sold on its countless swings to recreate the live service success of Rainbow Six Siege. On top of the fact that developers are unhappy with NFTs, they're also unhappy with the kinds of games Ubisoft are greenlighting. All of these games that are chasing trends. Ghost Recon Frontline is trying to be Call of Duty Warzone. The Division Heartland, I believe, is rumored to be a Battle Royale. X-Defiant is essentially a traditional Call of Duty experience. It's their take on that. And there's Project Pathfinder, which is described as a new third-person IP, which seems to use the Hyperscape engine and visuals, and they're trying to make a game out of that, salvage Hyperscape's, I guess, assets and technology, because that was a cyberpunk-themed battle royale that flopped super hard. So their priorities, where Ubisoft's executives' priorities lie, are not confidence-inspiring, both among players and developers, both in terms of the kinds of games that they're putting out there and the quality of games that they're putting out there, and this push for NFTs that have proven to have more cons than pros, that are rife with scams and crime and all of these things, and yet Ubisoft is more than insistent on normalizing this thing that is in such an unregulated state that it's almost like financially dangerous to engage with them, and God knows what these greedy executives would want to do with something like this, given what they already do without NFTs, all the really scummy and shitty and exploitative monetization. Imagine how much more they can push that with NFTs and all the speculation surrounding it. But that's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on all of this. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.